Somos agentes de cambio. It's my pleasure to have you with us, Dr. Noihed. You are the Dean of the Faculty of Health Science at the American University of Beirut. It's a pleasure to have you here. Dr. Noihed, you live in an area of conflict, but it's not only Lebanon. Unfortunately, the world we seem to be dividing ourselves and sometimes hating each other, fighting, while we have so much to do in terms of a global society and a planet that we may be losing, and by practices that are unsustainable. Your program that you describe in another section about the role of AUB, the role of this joint master's program between AUB and Earth University in Costa Rica, very unique. Will that be a small example of that will have larger impact in showing the world that we can work together, that we can overcome those barriers?
Yeah, the world more and more, the world is schizophrenic in how it's addressing these things. On one hand, as you mentioned, that there are conflicts that are growing, the nature of these new conflicts, that they never stop. So it's not that it's a war that ends in a year or two or a month or a week, or these are conflicts that drag and drag and drag. They're becoming protracted. They're changing the nature of societies, and they're questioning even many of these values that humans actually adhere or try to adhere to. So on one hand, we're observing all of these sort of conflicts and fightings and wars and injustices and gaps that are growing economically, educationally. So as many of us use smartphones and these connections, there are still a couple of billion people that don't have access to a decent latrine. They don't have access to good water. They don't have access to education. So technology on one hand sort of going through the sky, and then at the other hand you have people who don't have the access to the basic needs of life. So we have these gaps, and at the same time the world is saying let's do something about it. So when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals that the UN agreed that we're going to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in 2030, 17 of them. And they deal with poverty, with education, with health, with energy, with cities, with employment, water ecosystem, marine, name it, peace, networking, all of these things. So the world on one hand is living through these challenges, and on the other hand saying maybe we need to have these targets and try to sort of amend things or fix things where we can. And we have to sort of, we cannot be neutral in this. I think we're very clear that we stand by all efforts to alleviate poverty, all efforts to ensure equality between men and women, all efforts that protect the rights of children and the older people, all efforts that protect the environment and all its elements, and we need to do that. The danger from experiences is that when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, and there are 17, that people who are working on poverty would think about this goal alone. People working on education will focus on education. People working on health will focus on health. And it becomes almost a competition between the different sectors, the education sector and the energy sector and the water sector. But all of these sectors are actually infused or they sort of converge into our daily life. Every single one of us we don't differentiate between resources because we're using them all together, all at the same time. And this is the beauty of the program that we're sort of launching. We're trying to say, how can we train people who can think of these goals holistically? They might not become experts in climate change and experts in education, but they need to be sensitive to the fact that you cannot deal with water if you don't understand all the other elements of it. And so that's where the hope is. The hope is that more and more we have professionals, we have communities, we have countries who start thinking holistically, intersectorially across these different elements.